Hello and welcome to the Wow Show, an hour full of stories from and for truck drivers on the road. We're going to have fun saying thank you for who you are and what you do as drivers. And we're going to talk to some people who know their stuff so that we can learn more. My name is David Binyachek. I'm your host. Let's get started. Good morning to you. It's David and the Wow Show. This week has been a week where I kind of get excited about things turning around. We've been cooped in with COVID for so long in terms of what I do. I train on one hand leadership in companies, and that involves traveling and speaking to a large number of people in a small room, which of course has been ground to a halt over these days. And I've done some online coaching, but for what I do, I love the in-person experience. And so I'm looking forward to, as we start talking about as restrictions are lifting and conditions improve to the point where we might be able to get back to doing that, it gets me excited. And then for photography, a lot of couples have put off their weddings. And so the photography that I do, we're doing a grad shoot next month, and more couples calling about weddings and planning their wedding, and just get pumped about that. It's an excitement. But you know what? Today's show is about coping through the season we've been through. And for many Canadians, the isolation of COVID is new. It's not new to you as a professional driver on the road. It's something that you faced in your entire career. And it has its pluses and its minuses. There's nothing like being on your own, a good cup of coffee, some good music, and the road, or whatever you love to drive to. It can be an amazing feeling. But isolation can also play tricks in our mind. And so my guest number one on this week's program is Robyn Priest. And she's out of Winnipeg, Manitoba. And we're going to be talking with her because she's all familiar with it. She has her own personal story. We're going to be talking about mental health. For those of you that know me, and for those of you that listen to the show, I think you can figure out that I'm a half glass full sort of guy, but that doesn't mean I don't enter my dark spaces in my mind. What we think can head south in a hurry, especially for me, if I'm in isolation for too long, if I'm in a vacuum without any feedback, without any discussion, without meeting people for too long. It's amazing how sideways and normally downwards my thought cycle can go. I don't always act on it. I don't always communicate it, but communication is important. And so I love this discussion that I had the chance to have with Robyn Priest out of Winnipeg. You're going to love her bluntness and her stories. And I'm hoping for some of you, it can help. Because you know what, when you're feeling down and when you're getting those thoughts, I had an interview this week with Tim Brewer with Dynacare out of Winnipeg. It's a common theme, but not that. I mean, mental health is across the country, but two people from Winnipeg. And here's a man who's recently lost 80 pounds, getting his life back, feeling like he has purpose again, but went through an extended period coming out of a traumatic situation where he just wanted to eat himself to death, had thoughts of suicide, and was clinically depressed. And that rebound discussion is going to be the focus of a future show on the Wow Show. So stay tuned for that. But this is a discussion that we need to have. And the lesson from today's discussion with Robyn and the lesson from the interview with Tim Brewer is ask for help. Ask for help. What your thoughts are telling you right now isn't the truth. And the difference between a bad choice and a good choice when we are in those circumstances is simply reaching out to someone, whether it's EAP at your workplace, employee assistance program, whether it's just a buddy trucker that is a good lending ear and can talk some sense into you and remind you that life isn't exactly what you see at the moment. We all get hit with it. This is nothing to be ashamed about. This is nothing to back away from about. You deserve that help. And we all get to those places. And so as you listen to this show, it may be for you right now, it may be for you in the future. But the big moral of the story is going to be ask for help, because help is available and help can turn situations around. The second part of today's show, after my discussion with Robyn, is just a cool story about helping people or supporting people or saying thank you to essential workers in our country. And it involves the Essential Trailer, which is a project that was spearheaded by Glenn Caldwell and NEL Insurance, one of the sponsors of our show. But really, the power of what Glenn does is he involves a whole community. So he'll be the first to tell you, he was just the guy that kind of spearheaded it. There were a ton of trucking companies that came on board. The private motor transport sector came on board, and that group came on board. And who I'm interviewing today is Jeff Lambier. He's with Ivan Armstrong Trucking, and as a part of that group, they did a raffle as to who could get the trailer and take it around their community. And you're going to like his stories. They took this trailer around where he lives in southwestern Ontario as a reminder, not just to truck drivers, but to nurses and doctors and firemen and policemen, that we've got your back as you've got ours. And it's kind of cool to highlight these good stories instead of all the other news that we tend to get in our broadcasts on a day-to-day basis. So today's WOW show, it's all about mental health and saying thank you for who you are and what you do. Two guests, Robyn Priest and Jeff Lambier. Here we go. Good morning, Canada. David with the WOW Show here. I'm super pumped about our guest today because we're going to be talking about something that more people need to talk about, and that is mental health. It affects all of us. I don't care who you are, how old you are, how young you are, where you come from. Mental health affects all of us, and it's always an important topic. It's especially an important topic for people in transport during the season of the pandemic and COVID. My guest is the one and only Robyn Priest in Winnipeg, Manitoba, or close to, who is an international expert on peer support and mental health. Robyn, thank you for being here.
Hey, nice to be here. And I always get a little weirded out when people talk about me being an expert in mental health. I'm an expert in my own, which some days works well, some days doesn't work as others. But I think I've just been super fortunate to get to work around the world and have some fun talking about my own experiences. So, yeah.
So here's your parallel with trucking,
Mhm.
because you have had some exposure to the transport sector with your partner, Charlotte. But here's your parallel. You've been everywhere. So you're a traveler, much like truckers and professional drivers who are all over the place on the road and go from one place to another. How many countries have you lived in? Tell us a little bit about Robyn Priest. Where were you born? Where have your travels taken you? How did you get to where you are? And I saw in a video that we're really lucky because you said, I'm staying in Canada.
Yes, yes. So, I'm Australian. I'm a bit of a nomad, I think. I I uh, I grew up with a father who had his own experience of mental health issues, and he used to move us a lot, like every couple of years, and we would move states. And uh, just in terms of those long haul drives, we moved from Adelaide to Brisbane. It's about 28-hour drive, and my dad would like wake up and go, "We're going to Adelaide this weekend," and I just got my license. I'd be driving across the country, trying to miss the kangaroos in the night. And I used to follow the long haul truckers because I was like, well, I'm pretty safe behind them.
Yes.
And we'd drive there, we'd have a couple of days and we'd drive home. And it got me into that nomadic life, I think. So Australia, obviously, I lived in New Zealand on and off for 12 years. I went back and forward, couldn't work out where I wanted to live, very expensive moving countries.
Yes.
And then I had the coolest job. I got to be part of a team that did a report for the Mental Health Commission of Canada
Yes.
called Making the Case for Peer Support. I got to do all the focus groups across Canada.
Wow.
So I started off in St. John's in Newfoundland,
Yep.
ended up in Whitehorse in the Yukon, and as any good Aussie does, I went, oh, I want to drive to Alaska. So I I hopped in this tiny little rental car in October, never having driven in snow and ice, and drove across the Alcan. And was hanging out, and I always check out like peer support services in relation to mental health. And so I went to see these people, and they went, "Oh, we just got the first executive director job coming up. Do you want to, apply?" And I went, hmm, I'll apply. And if I get it and get a work permit, I'll move. And so I moved from New Zealand, where it was, 20-ish Celsius, 22 Celsius,
A lot of the year.
in February, to Anchorage, Alaska, where I think the day I arrived, hmm, it may have been minus 30 Celsius. And
Yes.
I stayed there for a couple of years, and then got headhunted to um, work for an organization where I was talking about recovery from mental health
Yep.
and peer support in mental health. And I was working in different states in the US, but I also got like the coolest part. I got to work in the Pacific. So I was working in Guam and Palau and American Samoa and the
I'm
Northern
jealous.
Marianas. And so I wasn't doing that driving long haul stuff. I was doing the sit my ass in a seat for 40 hours on planes to get somewhere, work like
But you know,
crazy, and get
Rob,
back on the plane.
that's another parallel because while
Mm.
truckers are going somewhere all the time, professional drivers are going somewhere all the time, our asses are stuck in the seat. And so
You have
whether
to
you're
do a
on
little more concentration as a truck driver than getting on the plane.
a
But anyway, while I was working, I was doing stuff in Canada, in the Pacific, US, Australia, and New Zealand. I met Charlotte Sitnick, my business partner, doing some training, and we were at a conference, and one day she said, "You want to start a business?" And I went, "Sure." She goes, "You have to move to Winnipeg." And I went, "Nah, okay." And the country gave me a work permit. Well, I had some. I'd been coming in and out doing work. And so September 2018, I popped up and moved to Winnipeg.
can I make this statement? Because as I'm listening to you, I'm not, I am jealous. I love it. That's more the proper word. I love your openness. And here's what I was thinking is that opportunity comes to people who are open to it.
Hmm.
And that's a broad statement, but being open to it is a battle of the mind.
I totally, because I think what happens is, like, we grow up with all these societal norms. This is what you do, this is how it looks. You grow up,
Yeah.
you get a relationship, it lasts or it doesn't. They hope it does, right? But
Yeah.
I'm not always that good at them because I keep moving. But um, it's this place where we think it has to look one way. And I think one of the things I always talk about is is find your groove. And if your groove is stability,
Yes.
consistency, then go with it. If you're kind of the person that's like me, that doesn't feel quite right.
Yeah.
If you're open to it, there's so many things where you can look outside the box. And
Yeah.
if you're prepared to take that step, and I think that's one of those things, right? We get in our comfort zone, and even when it's uncomfortable,
Yes.
like, it's comfortable because it's safe, we know it. And
Yeah.
there's this fear factor about, if I do something different or step outside this box, am I going to fail? Are people going to look at me oddly and judge me? Like, and then there's also I've chatted with friends, right, who have like significant mental health diagnosis, as do I.
Yeah.
Uh, but they've said one of the things that they were super scared about taking a step was, what if they achieved what they wanted? They knew who they were as someone who'd been labeled with a mental health issue and told all these things. You can't do this, you'll always have to be careful, you have to be on medication, whatever it is.
Yeah.
And they were like, but what if I try something and it works? Who am I?
Yeah.
I don't know myself to be this like well person. I've been taught to be this, you're not you're not good enough. We'll have to look after you.
I know.
And so it's been really interesting with those kind of steps and just
So I've
the
written a word, and it's going to become the theme of to our listeners. You're not seeing it on the radio, but you'll see it on the replay because we're doing auto video on the YouTube channel. It's the word possible,
yeah.
and that's going to be the theme for our listeners today. And I love what you said because I want to apply this to the transport sector. Is that you said like I've got my issues too,
Yeah.
and I've had my struggles, and in many ways, our environment shapes how adventurous naturally we are or we aren't are. Like you, my life was never, it never followed the typical supposed to pattern.
Mm.
And so I've come to learn to love um, chaos.
Ah,
Like I love when the lights go out and the projector doesn't work and it's just me and the audience and they think the day's over, but I'm going, you're here, I'm here,
yeah.
let's go.
Let's do it.
Let's
Let's do
go. I want to talk to that we all have our struggles and it may not be the direct application. I'm going to throw this at you, but I was looking at some of your stuff online, and people should on YouTube just Google. I guess it's YouTube. Robyn Priest, Robyn, and then Priest. Um, and it talks about values of peer support, and we're going to come into that. But it says that peer support is strengths focused.
Yeah. Yeah.
And here's my take on that, and you can talk about that or comment on it. Do not throw away the struggles you've been through, because as I'm able to stare them in the face,
Mm.
and I have had to stare them in the face and know what they're about, when I use things like peer support and other things to come out, it becomes my strength.
Yeah.
I have an amazing opportunity to share in the very areas. It was like my PhD in that area of life. And, and,
Absolutely.
and I have amazing power and strength in that area with the people around me.
It's one of those things, right? That often the struggles that we have are, sometimes people see our struggles as weaknesses or
No,
deficits.
no,
And I actually think the struggles are the things that create who we are, the
yeah,
strength that we actually have internally. And, I like this isn't the transport industry, but I think there's a relatability here. So I was doing some work once in a residential treatment center, and we were doing this work about getting your dream job.
yeah,
And this guy was like, well, I'm never going to get a job. And I'm like, oh, why not? And he goes, I've been in jail, in and out of jail for 17 years. And I went, oh, I said, well, what were you in jail for? And he goes, break and enter. I can get in anywhere. I just can't get out in time.
yeah,
And everyone had a bit of a giggle. And we were doing this thing about looking at what are the skills we have, even the things that people don't see as skills. And all of a sudden he was like, oh,
yeah.
and he said, I'll be back. And he got a pass and he went to the local security firm and he went in and he said, you need me. You protect buildings. I know where every single building is vulnerable. He got a job,
That's
like on
amazing.
the spot.
Okay.
And and I think it's that piece that I think, in mental health we often get called manipulative.
Yes.
And I'm like, damn that. We're just great group negotiators because we can
Yeah.
get what we want. We're creative, we're strategic, and those are skills that are valued.
Yeah.
So I often do workshops with anyone, not just people with mental health, but anyone dealing with their stuff, and say, what are the words that even staff in services, and we did it in a corporation last week, and I said, what are the words you use about yourself?
Yeah.
or the words that other people use that have a negative connotation. And let's brainstorm with everyone, come up with those strength based things about it, and pick one that resonates with you.
Yeah.
And you watch people's body language. And if I can just share one that's a little out there. So I was at a conference, got everyone doing this, and at the end, there's 180 people in the room, and I go, does anyone have a word they can't think of something? And this little woman goes, yes. And I'm like, oh, what's your word? Because I think I'm all that, right? I got
Yeah.
this. And she goes, slut and whore. And I
Wow.
was like, oh, and you know what it's like, David. If you can't think of something, you ask the audience. So I'm like, oh, anyone in the audience know what a strength-based word might be? And this person on the other side of the room stands up. She goes, yeah, you're just fun loving. And this person went, oh, I am, aren't I? I'm just love to have fun. And her whole demeanor changed. And it was just in an instant. And why can't we take those things where people are judging us or we're judging ourselves and get some support to flip that like a light switch?
So I want to say that judging people that judge us and we judge ourselves, my
Mm,
experience is, and it's true for me, that I'm far more critical
mm,
of myself than anyone else could ever be. And so
yeah,
I've written another word, and it's overcomer.
yeah,
And so in my mind, there's three players in this game called health, mental health,
mm,
life, achievement, overcoming. It's myself, it's them, the people around me, and it's the environment.
yep, totally.
And I think that too few people realize how powerful the environment that they choose to put themselves in has an impact on who they believe that they are and what they become and how they achieve. And the obstacle for most people, including the drivers that are listening to and the people in transport listening to this podcast, the biggest obstacle is ourselves. And that creativity that you talk about, creativity is simply, to me, you don't have to be born with it. Creativity is to be audacious enough to expose yourself to something new every single day, to stretch your mind, because if you can see something different, now you can believe it, now you can achieve it, and that whole positive path starts. The environment for truckers is isolation. And
Yeah.
and here's what, if I picture isolation as a field, there's part of isolation that's good. I mean, every once in a while, I need to clear my head. Grab a Tim Hortons. I go on, get in my car, roll down the window up to -10. And if it's -10, I crank the heat in the car and I turn on my 80s music and I hit the road and it's just me and my thoughts. And it's awesome. But isolation, 8 to 10 hours a day, 13 hours a day, if they're not reaching out, if that's a field, I mean, it allows shame to grow. It allows anger to grow. It allows judgment of others to grow,
Mhm.
and not based on any reality, but based on this thing that's simply going untested in our mind. But because we focus on it long enough, we start to believe that. Because Robyn Priest is about my truth. It becomes our truth. But in life, it's important to distinguish the truth from what's true.
Yeah, yeah. Our minds are the best traps that we have in the world. They're like, you're not good enough. Oh no. Oh no, you're not. So, like, let's be real. I do work across the world, right? In
Yeah,
different countries. Last night I was on a call setting up work in Australia, but I still sit here in my head and go, why are people listening to me? Like, I'm just this kid from Australia who likes to chat.
yeah,
And my head does that. And, even before I came on here, I'm like, what have I got to say that anyone would want to listen to in the trucking industry? And was sitting here and I'm like, yep, I'm just going to have a chat with Dave and we'll see how it goes, right? But we get in our heads and we play it over and over. And the piece is I have a little sign just above my computer, right? And I'm looking at it. It says, choose with no regret in each moment.
mhm,
and compromise, but not compromise me.
Yeah.
You know, I have those there to remind myself that I do get choices
Yeah.
in each moment. What am I listening to?
Yeah.
And I'm not doing the isolation that, you guys and girls out there driving trucks are doing, right? And I listened to the podcast where you were talking about COVID, and I want to say I am appalled at the treatment that you're getting. And I want to say from the bottom of my heart, thank you for what you do,
Yeah.
because you put yourselves out there every day. You open yourselves up
Yeah.
for the isolation that the rest of the world are complaining about at the moment. And
Yeah.
I go, I can't, I live by myself, right? And I'm allowed to bubble with one person. I
Yes.
see them once or twice a week. Otherwise, I'm sitting in my
Like
apartment.
Charlotte.
Oh, no, actually, I can't see Charlotte. Uh, it's the weirdest thing. Charlotte used to come here and work. We had 2 desks, and I would see her every day. And then November, when Manitoba hit its things down, I had a choice. Do I want to spend time with Charlotte, who's, she's got her family, or do I want to, bubble with the person that I'm dating? I'm like, oh, I'm going to pick that person. Um, but true. Well, come on, let's
Yeah.
be.
I don't blame
But
you.
um, it's it. I haven't made a choice to isolate the way I do in this moment, but truckers made a choice, knowing that there was going to be times where they were going to be on the road 13, 14 hours plus.
Yeah.
I know. Um, and, they were going to be with themselves, basically.
Yeah.
And, I look and I think, well, they at least thought they could stop and chat to someone at a truck stop. And now it's like, nope, don't come in here.
Yeah.
Um, and so, like, one of the things I think is nobody's actually talked to the trucking industry about the skill set they have to support the rest of the world in how to deal with some of that isolation. We
Yeah.
haven't tapped into that. And
It,
why haven't we?
it is their strength.
Totally.
And the trucking community gets the word community.
Yeah.
They truly can, in parts of it, live it like no other lives it. And I would say that even regionally in Canada, the prairies and the Maritimes are two regions that
Mm.
really have community as a part of their DNA.
Yes. You have to survive. And I think, I'm not in the trucking industry, but I think that piece, that's the piece when I think about, um, like when I think about peer support, right?
Yeah.
It's about people with similar experiences being able to connect with each other,
Yeah.
right? I listen to what you talk about in those podcasts, right? And listen to people's experience, and I can go, wow, I can relate something, but it's not the same, right? So when I think about peer support, it's about relationship, it's about relatability. And a trucker talking to a trucker about, like, oh, I got in like just under the wire and I had to unpack and then I had to pack and I had to get out of there and I didn't have the time, and oh my, like, I can't relate to that in the same way that someone lives and breathes it can.
Because they
And
faced that struggle. They've stared it in
yeah,
the eyes.
and that's why I think there's a piece for me about, like, how do we set up those connect, they're probably out there. As you said, there's a community, but it's super important to kind of look at how we foster that.
So here's a challenge I'm going to throw out to our listeners. If you are a company that is actively, and I know that many companies will partner a new driver with someone in the
Mhm.
company to get them a start, and it's more around the training aspect. But I'm sure it's out there. So if you're a company that is running a peer support type of program, no matter how you think it's framed or the framework of it, and you're leveraging it and you have experience in it, can you let us know about it? So David at wowtrucks.com, or go to wowtrucks.com. You'll see the contact form. Let me know about it. I'd love to feature it. I'd love to showcase it because I think Robyn's right. We need to celebrate this because out of the struggle comes a strength and a gift that this industry has to give other people, and it's really powerful. So yeah, that's a challenge that I'm definitely going to throw out there.
The, the other thing I want to say is to the companies that don't have one,
Yep.
like it's free to chat with me, just to call me up and chat
Yes.
about maybe you want to. Um, like I would love to be able to have a conversation about that as a possibility because I think one of the things is like I think it is important to have some structure, like a little bit of training to it, because we can do damage if all we're talking about is our war stories
Yes.
and we haven't learned like how to have some of those conversations without just dipping into the war story. Because sharing is great,
Yeah.
but it's important to kind of think about, and some of the values around peer support are about like hope and recovery. Like,
Yeah.
yes, there's a way through this. I'm feeling super isolated. I don't know what to do. I feel like, and I'm going to put it out there, I feel like killing myself. I have no idea how to get through this. And like I'm not pushing us. I'm saying just check it out. And if there's someone else
Yeah.
that does some good training or whatever, use that as well. We provide great training, but that's beside the point. But
Yeah.
being able to, how do we have those conversations?
Yeah.
How do we have the tough ones and not be the deer in the headlight? If you're chatting with another driver and they're like, I'm so done, I'm just ready to end this, and you're like, um, what do I do now? And the reality is we can just sit in the conversation because humans want to connect with humans.
Biggest thing you can do is listen. I want to throw this past you because you hit a button with me on a good way in terms of what you just said. Many people view mental support or dealing with mental issues as focusing on them,
Mm,
and while I think it does manage them, I don't like that perception of focusing on them because we
mm,
magnify what we focus on. To your point,
yep.
if it's just about talking about our struggle, then our struggle becomes bigger and bigger and bigger and bigger and bigger. And it's not that you don't talk about it, but you talk about it to expose it, and then you move on. And that's what peer support should be: is this accountability to say, what are you going to do? Like, what are we going to do about it? What can we do about it? A positive sort of, okay, let's move away. Let's starve. Let's starve the struggle and move into something better.
I mean, one of the things we have to be conscious of in terms of peer support for me, right? This is
Yep.
how I teach it, that we want to come without an agenda. So my agenda isn't, I'm going to fix you, I'm going to move you. It's,
What?
I'm going to be passionately curious about you. And when I'm passionately curious, I can ask questions that have you start to explore what it could look like if it was different. Like I call our peer support training exploration facilitation.
Yeah.
Like my job is to facilitate you exploring what you really want your world to look like. And so I don't come in with I want to solve it, fix it, get you somewhere, but I want you to be able to explore. And in the way I do that,
Yeah.
like you will move through stuff. And maybe right in this minute, you're not quite ready to move through it, but this
Yeah.
next minute you might be.
Yeah. And that's the
And
beautiful
I'm there
thing
to
about
help you
peer support.
explore
They're
it.
always there. And so they're there when you're ready.
Yeah,
And
yeah.
I love that. This is one of those things that's going to end up on LinkedIn with your face and then the quote and I want to get the second part of it correct because you said, I'm just going to be passionately curious so that What did you say? So that we could eventually maybe explore what can be different? Or
I'm just passionately curious. Like I talk about being an exploration facilitator.
yeah,
Like I support people to explore what they want in life.
yeah,
Like that. So I'm passionately curious about who you are
mm,
and what makes you tick and what's important to you without an agenda, without judgment. Like I'm just going to be in this with you
yeah,
to allow you to decide where you want to go. But I'll be asking questions
yeah.
that
Not telling.
have you think. I'm world renowned for things called respectful challenges
Hmm.
in trainings with people. And one of my big questions is, well, how's that working for you?
Yeah,
Is it working? Is it giving you what you truly want? Or do you actually know what you truly want? You
yeah,
might not. You might have never sat down and thought, what is it that I really want in life? And I'm I'm cautiously optimistic that through this COVID stuff, more people are going, what is really important to me?
yeah,
I hope,
yeah,
instead of I'm just trying to survive the day. Because for me, I want to live life. I don't want to survive it.
yeah.
Because that to me sounds pretty boring. But that's me. There's other people who are like, I want to survive this. And I'm like, okay, that's your choice. No judgment here.
So you admitted that before the call, you're wondering what you had to contribute, and you're contributing a ton. And you just threw out two important messages. Number one, for leaders, there is power in just being passionately curious about your
Mhm.
employee.
Totally.
And people don't like to be told what to do. When we try to control people, it's one of the three things we need as individuals to be open. It just doesn't work. And um, I'm thinking that the message to drivers and people that work in transportation companies to the employee
Mm.
is that we need to really uh, step back and go, if we're not passionately curious, it may simply be because it's not our personal failure, but we're in an environment where we don't have those inputs. We
Yeah.
haven't chosen to put ourselves around people, places, and things, or listen to things that expand our mind and thinking in terms of what's possible, instead of keep it focused on what's not. And so if you're out there, and we all get to this point where you're fed up with being fed up with life,
Hmm.
uh, you know, the question is, who could you start hanging out with that's different than your current inputs? It's not that you ditch all your current friends. That's not what I'm saying. But who could you hang out with that would put some passionate curiosity? They love you, they support you, and they're not going to tell you what to do because we don't
Yeah.
like that.
Yeah.
But they're just going to explore with you.
Yeah. I'm a big fan of saying to people, like, we don't get to control a lot in life. We have this. I was listening to the podcast that you sent me, and you were talking about it too. What do we have control over? The reality is, we thought we had control over a lot, and we don't.
Yeah,
Like, we don't have control over anything outside of ourselves.
yeah,
Um, we have control over how we react to anything outside of ourselves.
yeah,
Um, but for me, right, I always say to people, are you where you want to be right now?
yeah,
And if you aren't, what do you want to do about it? Like you have a choice.
yeah,
You can stay in the way you are. And people go, oh, but it's money, it's this, it's that, it's da, 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 da." And I'm like, yeah, I get that. I get there's some constraints, but like you also have the ability to choose and look about if you want something different, what's it going to look to get there?
hmm,
And are you willing to go after it? And I think you talked about choice and consequences
yeah,
in the podcast I was listening to, right? And I think that's it. We always have choices.
yeah. You always have a choice.
Always.
If you
And
don't see it, surround yourself with someone else who's passionately curious enough to see it,
yeah.
because they're not constricted by the same walls that you currently have around your head.
Yeah, and I've been having a conversation with someone in my life at the moment, and they're like, I don't know what I want to do. I don't know if this is it. And I'm like, well, I'm totally here to explore with you until you work out what it is. And
Yeah.
we can just sit and chat.
Oh my
You
goodness.
don't have to know in this moment,
And
right?
here was your question. I want to get your thoughts on this. I think it's a great question. Are you where you want to be?
Yeah.
And if the answer is no,
Mm.
that's a great spot. And it's also that intersection has some dangers to it. And so I think moving forward requires two things. Number one, yes, it requires a new expectancy. So as we surround ourselves with people that give us this curiosity that dares us to start looking at that I do have choices and there are new things, that's really important. And I'm going to encourage our listeners: if you don't have it, it's everything you need is within your choice. You don't need anyone else to do anything to take advantage of what we're talking about today. It's in your hands. What do you choose to do? But then, you know, we also need a second part, because hope not realized
Yes.
actually crushes the heart. And so
Yes.
we need expectancy, yes, but we need sufficiency. And so that those same inputs just validate, you know what, it's okay that we want to be more, but you know what, you're awesome as you are.
It is the thing, right? I do this thing with people sometimes about unleashing our awesomeness,
Yeah,
right? That and my thing is every single person is absolutely awesome. They don't always see it, but everyone is. Everyone has innately in them this great person. And sometimes we're just, I talk about it like we have layers of overcoats, like someone's expectation, boom,
yeah,
someone else's expectation, our expectation of ourselves. And then we're walking around like this
yeah,
and we're facing the ground. We can't look up when we're so like put on by our expectations and everyone else's. We actually run a free course called Getting Rid of the Shoulds.
yeah,
Um, and it's 2 hours, so it's free.
yeah,
Um, but it has people start to think about how many shoulds do we put on ourselves? How much guilt and blame and expectation, and then like unmet expectation that colors the way that we see ourselves and see the world, and how much do we put it on everyone else?
yeah,
And if we can come to a place where there's no shoulds in life, it's like shitting on ourselves, sorry, you
yeah,
know
yeah,
like shooting on ourselves. Like if we can come to a place where we can take a look at that and put that aside, or shooting on others, um there's so much freedom with that,
yeah.
like so much freedom.
So if you're listening on Lead Pedal Radio, you didn't see Robyn awkwardly hunched over, but it was a beautiful vision. And you know what? I just want to throw this out to our listeners. If you're like me, you carry, and this was the beautiful vision of Robyn hunched over. So watch the replay and watch just for this hunch moment, and you'll get the picture. But is that we carry so much crap that isn't ours. Like we get weighed down by what we feel the expectations of others are. And it weighs us down, where we're just saying, what do you expect? And use others not to weigh you down, but to lift you up.
Yeah.
And that is really cool. So, Robyn, in today's world, when I work with people in transport, managerial level, like
Mm.
that run companies, they, they've got 25 hours of work in a 24-hour day.
Yeah.
And I think one of the obstacles, both for what you do and what I do, is like, well, this is just another make work project, and I really don't have time for this. But I think that my vision of peer support is that an initial investment creates something that kind of runs on its own, and that's the beauty of it. It's like delegating empowerment and engagement to your organization. So as a manager, you're not stuck trying to be that wheel all the time, because that's not your greatest value of contribution. Your greatest value of contribution is to empower your people so they don't need you.
And I think one of my respectful challenges to you, Dave, is like we talk about empowerment,
Yeah.
in our training, we talk about empowerment, that it's already in there.
Yeah.
It's already in there. It's just unleashing it.
You listened to my most recent post, or did you?
No.
That's exactly what I said. I said that if you realize that your potential is in you,
Yeah.
then you're not going out there. You don't have the pain of thinking that you don't have it yet, and you need to find it. And then what happens is you fall prey to all the marketers in the world who remind you who you're not, and then
Yes.
sell you their stuff. And
Yes.
it may be useful stuff, but if it's not attached to your authenticity and your journey, you're going to go around the mountain 1,000 times and still feel like you're at the same place.
Look, we're just two very similar people in different places. But getting back to that, in terms of a peer support program, right?
Yeah.
There might be a little bit of investment, and I mean a little. Well, it depends on the company. If you want to use a company to help you, some of us are about capacity building, not empire building. So
Yeah.
some of us, don't
Yeah.
make a lot of money, but love what we do.
Yeah.
But right, there's a little bit of investment in time, and maybe if you're getting someone to run some training for you, that, and I mean little, doesn't have to be huge, but the benefits, right, of
Yeah.
workplace peer support are decreased absenteeism,
Yeah.
like um, less turnover at work,
Yeah.
um, more satisfied like people. So I'm thinking whatever business you're in, but I know the margins aren't great in trucking as far as I hear from everyone. So why wouldn't you want to support your employees to be happier in their jobs,
Yeah.
have less time off, and not like leave as much? Like I'm kind of like, I think it's not rocket science. I want to make people happy at work.
I'm going to drop the mic.
Yeah. Not rocket science. Hello. Hello.
You know
And
what?
it's not clinical. That's the
Yeah.
other thing too, right?
Yeah.
We get caught in this trap that we think mental health, and everyone goes, oh my God, I have to go to a psychologist or a psychiatrist or a social worker, or I don't want to talk about it because what if I la, 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 la. And and the reality is peer support is a non-clinical thing. It's people sharing with each other. Like I have one of those interesting diagnoses, right? I'll share. I have a diagnosis of bipolar disorder. I don't take medication,
Mhm.
right? The side effects were ugh. So I had to work out how to have a great life um, with looking at other options. But I I don't and haven't seen a psychiatrist or a social worker or anything in, I don't know, I think the last time was 2006 ish.
Yeah.
Um, and I have lots of people in my life who have had similar struggles. In the past, years ago, I tried to kill myself. I can have conversations about that with someone and not be afraid to have a conversation,
Yeah.
and not think someone's going to try and fix me, give me a drug, sort of like
Yeah.
I'm just here. I think I always talk about let's just get our human back on.
Yeah.
We get our human back on. We're passionately curious. We're vulnerable too at times, and I get in occupations being vulnerable can feel like, oh, or some genders feeling vulnerable can.
Yeah.
Well, there was a there was a program in Australia a couple of years ago. Am I allowed to swear? I'm assuming I'm allowed to swear a little on this.
You
Um,
know what? The transport industry never swears.
Yeah, I know. There was a program in Australia. I don't know if it's still there, but it was for men. And Australians used to say toughen the fuck up.
Yeah.
And this program was called soften the fuck up for men. I think it was soften. It was a word like that. But it was like, it's okay, like you don't have to hold
Yeah.
on to the macho, I'm not going to talk about it. And I actually have a video that I use of a guy who works in the electrical industry talking about he grew up and you don't talk about this and you don't do stuff. And he got to the place where he wanted to kill himself. And he went, I realized that if I talk about it, like it doesn't feel as tough.
Yeah.
Like if I can engage in a conversation with someone who gets it
Yeah.
and gets my life,
Yeah.
I can actually get through this in a different way. And I don't think I'm minimizing the whole discussion around suicide, because truth be told, my um, brother, who was a very senior executive in Australia, lost his job around COVID, couldn't get a new job, thought he had to provide for his family, didn't know how else to do it, and he killed himself. And like I'm not minimizing this discussion,
Yeah.
but we can talk about when we feel these things, we have a shot
Yeah.
at supporting each other,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah. I had a very unusual vision as you were speaking, and it was a humorous time with my father. I was about 15 years old. We were in the kitchen of our home in Sault Ste. Marie, Ontario, and he was teaching me how to make German strudel.
Mhm.
And this is the strudel that you serve. It's not apple strudel. It's not a dessert strudel. It's a strudel that goes in with like chicken and more savory stuff, and it's made in the pressure cooker. And and for whatever reason, midstream, the lid of the pressure cooker flew off,
Oh,
and the strudel ended up like spraying like all over the ceiling of our kitchen. And he probably swore for a little bit, and then we laughed for a little bit. But then, you know what? If that's the metaphor for humans, then you're free. You're just free. Like, let it go. Be human.
yeah.
And so much good, so much like peace and joy and relaxation and help lies on the other side. And it's so cool. So you know what? Let's end with this, because I could talk with you all day. Uh,
Me too. Can
we
I come back one day? I
You
love to.
can, because I've actually got a gentleman I just did an interview. He wants to be part of a program where we have a forum where truckers are on. And so the invitation is there. Robyn, will you come back?
Yes, well, as long as your audience want me to, right? You might get all this feedback going, what the hell was that? Why was she on? Now, if that's the case, just message me and go,
No.
yeah, they said, yeah.
Uh,
But
I care too much about the transport community to not have you back,
oh,
because
cool.
your message is my message. We share the message, and it's super important.
Yeah, it's pretty, it's, I, again, I want to say thank you to everyone for what they do, because you are the unsung heroes. You're the people that people don't think about. And just so you know, I wanted to do this podcast first, but I'm going to be putting stuff on my social media saying, what the why are we not like standing up and saying thank you to these people who keep the economy going? Let's be
Yeah,
real. If we
yeah,
didn't have truckers, we'd be screwed.
yeah,
So I want to stand up and do my bit, because I didn't even think about some of those things talked about food, about bathrooms, about showers, about any of that.
yeah,
And I'm not prepared to sit back and just go, oh, well.
yeah. No, the environment has to change. So if they want to catch what you're doing on social media, they want to connect with Robyn Priest, how do they do that? And I'm going to post this for you listeners as the replay is posted on the YouTube channel. It's posted on wowtrucks.com on the main page. So you can catch the video and as well as the audio and see Robyn hunched over. Yes.
Um,
Where do they connect with you?
okay, so I'm bad at some of my social media, but I'm going to try and get better. So at the Robyn Priest is Instagram. I have a Robyn Priest official Facebook page. Again, it's Robyn with a Y and Priest as in church.
Yes.
Or really reach out, right? I'm going to say that because I know there's lots of people that listen to it, but I'd rather you reach out and be heard than not be heard.
Yeah.
The website is www.robynpriest.com.
Yeah. So
And like, yeah, just oh, there's also, for those of you who have a few minutes and want to laugh,
mhm.
um, we have a YouTube channel, Robyn Priest Live Your Truth. It's free. It says subscribe, but it's free. But last year in the pandemic, when it first started, I did 76 days of what was called Fit and Fun for Mental Health. Now, Fit and Fun for Mental Health is me being stupid for about 5 minutes with a little mental health message at the end. So I may have gone ice fishing in the puddle outside my apartment. And it was amazing. There was a fillet of fish at the end of my puddle. I may have tried out for the Winnipeg Bombers in the hallway of my apartment. I may have uh, tried out for the Jets with my dog's toys as the defensive people in the ice hockey rink in my house. I may have ridden a broom horse and done dressage. So if, in those times that you have to sit in your trucks because nobody's letting you in and you want something silly to do, check out the YouTube channel, and there also may have been spaghetti darts. Like
Spaghetti dance.
spaghetti onto a dartboard where I put I feel, I think, blah
Yeah.
blah.
Did it
So yeah,
stick?
have some fun.
Did it stick? Did the spaghetti
It
stick?
did stick, yes.
Uh,
Yeah. Take a look. It's a bit of fun.
Robyn, you're awesome. Thank you for being with us today. And I look forward to, you've accepted the invite, so you can't back out.
No, never.
I look forward to this driver forum. So listeners, check out our Facebook page. I'll probably create the event on the Wow Trucks Facebook page, and invite people who want to take part in that to take part in that. It's going to be an open invitation, and we'll schedule it for sometime in May. And we'll have Robyn back and just talk about this all important topic. Why? Because you are worth it. You're worth it, and it's a choice away. It's a choice away. Robyn Priest, thank you so much.
Awesome. Thanks for having me.
Thanks to Robyn Priest for that awesome hour talking mental health. Hopefully it helped some of our listeners today, or planted seeds for those of us that are going to need help in the future. We all deal with our mental health. So I thank her for that time. Next, just as much as we need help ourselves, the trucks that you drive need a little bit of loving, tender care. So a quick episode of being a kid in a trucker's candy store. On today's episode, Daryl at Lesco Distributors, one of the sponsors of our show in Edmonton, Alberta, highlights a couple other things in ways, products that we can use to make our trucks feel better as well. Here we go.
And certainly if they've got a little bit of time,
Yep.
then we can usually get it here freight free.
Nice. That's sweet. I like it. All right, what's next?
Well, this is the coolant tube. These are the stainless coolant tubes that we get. They make them for pretty much all the main manufacturers. Stainless, again, very economical. In some cases, I think cheaper than what we can get some steel tubes for. So if a person has to replace it, they'll do it once and they don't have to do it again. They won't worry about it.
Maintenance free.
Yeah. And as you know, as we've said, downtime is money.
Yeah.
When the truck's not moving, it's not making money.
Yeah. Helping them stay on the road.
And the other thing is we just got in 6 or 7 months ago, I guess, is the polyurethane motor mounts and bushings
Okay.
from Energy Suspension. They sure seem to last longer and better than what the normal factory rubber ones are. Understand why the factory puts those in,
Yes.
but if you're redoing your transmission and you want better cushion, great product to have.
Nice. Well, thanks, Daryl, for showcasing just some of the cool stuff that's now available.
Actually, they're just bringing up, there's a mirror extension that we designed for the Kenworth and Peterbilt.
Well, let's roll that in, ladies and gentlemen.
This is a mirror extension that we designed for the newer trucks, I guess, the Kenworth 680s, Peterbilt 579s, and Kenworth T880s, 567s. So it's a mirror extension that you can bolt and stay right on the truck because of the design of that mirror.
Yes.
It's a little hard to get an extension.
Yep.
So for those guys that are hauling heavy equipment or bales, logging, anything like that, it's a great, you can take the mirror extension off yourself and put it in the truck where the bracket stays with it.
Nice.
So it's all anodized so it won't rust. So
Love that.
pretty happy with it. We just got it out here a couple weeks ago.
Love that. And in the background, we hear the sounds of almost what sounds like a Harley. Has Tina arrived?
Tina has arrived. But that's our point.
Is that how Tina comes in every single morning, or?
No.
Essential. 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 I'm in a spelling bee. No, I'm not. The Essentials trailer is a very cool, relevant, and authentic project spearheaded by Glenn Caldwell, NAL Insurance, and the Private Motor Transport Carrier Group out in Niagara Falls that involves a number of trucking carriers. They got together and they deckled a trailer and they raffled it off to certain companies to be able to take that trailer around in their communities and remind essential workers, truck drivers, yes, but also policemen, firemen, hospital workers, nurses, doctors, you name it, across the spectrum. Remind them that they're important, remind them that they're essential, and just to say thank you and create some community spirit. Next is my interview with Jeff Lambier. Ivan Armstrong Trucking is one of those companies that won the right to take the trailer and to parade it around their community and to engage essential workers and the community with this very important message. I had the chance to sit down with Jeff, hear about that story, his story, and I think you're going to like it. Jeff Lambier, Ivan Armstrong Trucking. Here we go.
Sorry about that.
No, that's good.
Yeah,
I love it.
My dad always said you can't be good looking and smart, right?
So you defied the law.
Exactly.
Canada, it's David here with the WOW Show. And one of these things about COVID, there's not a lot of great things about COVID, but one good thing about COVID, every situation has its silver lining, is that Canada, the United States, across the world, they figured out that truck drivers are essential. And it's been kind of cool just to see how the respect and the thank yous that you're getting that we've been doing since 2008 through the calendar is now becoming more commonplace, and that's been awesome. On the line today and on video on Zoom, I've got Mr. Jeff Lambier. He's with Ivan Armstrong Trucking in Arthur, Ontario. Jeff, welcome to the program.
Awesome. Thank you, David. I really appreciate you asking me to come on.
Yeah, and it's not by mistake that we have Jeff on talking about essential. Because Jeff, you've been part of a program, and recently Ivan Armstrong Trucking dedicated one of their trucks to the Essentials trailer. And you've been doing some cool things. I mean, you've got your finger up. So what did I mistake?
Right. So actually, the trailer doesn't belong to us.
Okay.
It was an initiative from last summer. It began.
Yeah.
NAL Insurance, Glenn Caldwell.
Yeah.
He had a very lot to do with the system, or sorry, with the Essentials trailer.
Yeah.
With that, there was Tip Canada Trailer Rental. And there was numerous sponsors from the transportation industry that helped this trailer come to life. So I don't want to take any credit for creating the trailer, even though I wish I could. It's a fantastic design, but yeah, we had the opportunity to have the trailer, and I can explain that to you as well.
Yeah, that'd be great. So talk about the trailer. How big is it? What size trailer is it? What is it? You know, we'll post some pictures on the Wow Trucks website for our listeners that aren't obviously going to see it on the radio. You can go to wowtrucks.com, and I'm going to post pictures of this trailer, and maybe Jeff will be kind enough to send me some pics of his people with this trailer. That would be awesome, and we'll just post those. But talk about this trailer.
Well, so we had an opportunity. We're a member of the Fleet Safety Council, the central chapter. They put out an announcement that any companies that were interested in going into a draw to have an opportunity to have time with this trailer in order to thank their essential truck drivers and all their essential staff, we ended up entering the draw. So we put our name in to the central chapter of the Fleet Safety Council, and we had our giant wheel, and it spun, and Ivan Armstrong Trucking came up. We were very excited. So from there, we went into a draw for all of the chapters across Ontario. And there was going to be 2 winners selected out of that, one to be able to use the trailer in the month of May and one to use the trailer in September. And again, I should have bought maybe a couple lottery tickets to
I was going to ask you that.
lottery. Yeah. So we won the draw, and we got the position to use the trailer for the month of May. We had very little time of planning, but there were some great folks that I was able to reach out to, and when they seen the trailer and they kind of heard the idea of what we wanted to do, they just kind of took it and ran with it. It was fantastic.
So talk about the use of this trailer. So obviously it's deckled out, and it sends the message as it travels around your region on just thanking our frontline workers and truckers and so on. But what did you do with it?
Well, we had it obviously to thank our essential truck drivers and all of our support staff at Ivan Armstrong Trucking, and the management, the ownership of the company, we've been part of the Wellington business community for over 52 years, and they're very strongly committed to the community and support. So I had made the suggestion, if it would be great if we could take this trailer and show it around the local community. Not knowing how to do it, I had a friend with a local police detachment. I called her up. I told her kind of what I was thinking. Who do I need to get a hold of? She put me in touch with a constable out of the Fergus detachment. His name is Kirk McDonald. He looks after the media relations.
Yes.
I sent him a picture, a really rough draft of a media blurb. He immediately responded and said, "You know what? That's a fantastic idea. It's a really cool trailer." So first off, we thought, maybe get a picture of, park it somewhere, have an officer show up with a car and take a few pictures. So with our conversation, that ended up stretching into, hey, I have a contact with the Wellington Healthcare Alliance, with the hospital. The Fergus detachment is very close by. They have a long-term care that's very close by. They thought, hey, if we park it in the corner, all these workers coming and going will be able to view it. We got in contact with Allison Armstrong, no relation, fantastic lady from the Wellington Healthcare Alliance, and she just thought it would be great. So we thought, hey, why don't we park it on the lot? Maybe there's a chance to get a few representatives from the hospital to come out. So our first day at Groves Memorial Hospital in Fergus, we had representation from each department of the hospital come out. We had the representatives from the OPP. We had the North Wellington Fire come in with a fire truck. And it was huge. It was really, it's very hard to put it into words. There was lots of smiles, even though they had masks on. You can tell they were beaming out from under the mask,
Yeah,
and
you
they
can.
really appreciated that. Yeah, it was very heartwarming. It's very humbling to see the reactions. I got so many thank yous, which I really felt guilty. It wasn't my design. We had opportunity for the trailer, and it would have been a sin not to share it with the community. So that turned into another visit the following day at my hometown hospital in Palmerston, or locals call it Palmerston, Ontario,
Yeah.
which was great. Um, I We got a hold of the Minto Fire Department. They showed up with a big fire truck. They had some representatives. The paramedics, the ambulance come in again with the OPP representatives from the Palmerston Hospital. We had the Minto Clinic, which is on site. We had representatives from there, and right beside is a long-term nursing home,
Yeah.
Royal Terrace, and they also had representatives come over. So again, I'd love to share those pictures with you.
Yeah, please do. And I'll
Yeah,
post them
yeah.
on the site.
It
Do you
was
know what it is? It's so it's such an easy thing to do. And sometimes it takes a season like this for us to do it. But just the words thank you.
Mhm. Oh, yes.
You know, when we don't have any restrictions and life is flying by, it's so easy to forget to say it.
Right.
Even to the people that deep down in our heart we do appreciate and we love and respect and all those things, but we don't say it.
Right.
And so good on you for moving that around and just sending that message because it's needed.
Yeah. Well, and you know something, 14 months in, we're all getting very tired. And
Yep.
the trailer is for essential workers. It's not often the picture on the trailer, which you'll see, that you have a truck driver in between a doctor and a nurse.
Yeah.
And of course, it was put out there for the Thank a Trucker program. I traveled up and down the 401 corridor in Ontario, stopping at truck stops, supporting that program, giving out meals, personal protective equipment to truck drivers. Um, I remember seeing it at the time, thinking, "What a fantastic program!"
Mhm.
I just wish I was out there driving to be able to slip in and say thank you to them for
Yeah.
putting it on. And who would know? Not quite a year later, that we had an opportunity to enter the draw in order to share it with our own community.
Yeah.
Um, it was it almost it might sound a little ridiculous, but kind of took on a little bit of a life of its own. And I see, you know what, this is perfect. I had these wonderful people that had the connections to be able to set this up. I'm thinking, I'm a retired truck driver. I'm used to being told where to be at what time. You guys set it up. I'll make sure it gets there. So yeah, it was really fantastic. Um, the locals that come out. Of course, we had our photo shoot with everyone, but I was
Yeah.
there early in the morning. I stayed till noon each day. There was nurses that had come off the night shift. There was 4 young girls in Palmerston that had come back after everyone was gone, and I noticed them sitting there, and they were trying to set up a phone on the front bumper of their van facing the trailer to take a picture. So I get out, I walked around, I said, "I'm no photographer, but I'd love to take a picture here." I said, "Are you three ladies or sorry, four ladies in the in healthcare?" And they said, "Yeah, we work here at the hospital. We just got off a night shift."
Yeah.
They had went out for breakfast, and they said they thought they would come back to see if they're lucky enough to catch the trailer. So I said, "You
Yeah.
know what, that's fantastic." So we're able to take their picture. I had an essential grandmother that had strolled in. She said, "I'm not an essential worker, but I like to think I'm an essential grandmother." So yeah, she tried to take a selfie beside it. Yeah, there's a lot of people drove in and out. Totally shocked. One of the janitors at the hospital, she'd been there for a number of years. Of course, I rolled in about 7 in the morning. About 7:30, she come up to the truck with a coffee and a breakfast sandwich from good old Timmy's.
Yeah.
Yeah, thought I might be hungry, and I'm thinking, wow, it just blew me away how what it meant to people. So yeah, for me it was a win-win. I was told that, hey, we're very busy. I don't know if we can spare a driver for the week. If you
Yeah.
want it to go, you're going to have to drive it. I'm thinking, well, I guess it's like falling off a bike, right? So I
Yeah.
didn't have too many problems, but yeah, I was, my head was swelled getting in the cab of the truck there, driving that thing down the road. It was pretty awesome. Some of the reactions I was getting. Yeah, it's just perfect timing. Um, with that first week being National Nurses Week, Also police, National Police Week as well.
Mhm.
The following week, we had visited a local in Arthur long-term nursing home. Perfect timing again on the 19th, which was
Yeah,
PSW Day.
yeah.
Yeah, so you couldn't have planned the timing any better. It really worked out fantastic.
Well, and you know what? Perfect timing. And I've only known you for 15 minutes on this interview, but I think the perfect person was behind the wheel of that truck in terms of being able
Well,
to relate. And I can see almost like you and Glenn working well together, because what I love about Glenn Caldwell and NEL, and I see it in you already, is, and you've mentioned the word probably 20 times already, is just this honoring of community.
mhm,
You know,
definitely.
in bad times, you know, in some circumstances, no matter how well intentioned, I'm not knocking them, but government isn't the solution. Community is.
Yes. Yeah, it's there's so many good people out there, and sometimes unfortunately it takes some of these rough, tough, bad situations just to kind of make that shine. Even with our drivers, we had a slow period. We started crossing border. They come in, they said, boy, you know, we feel like we've been treated like we have the plague.
Yeah,
You know, everything short of a blood test before we enter a customer's location. And of course, we followed, you know, Transport Canada's guidelines as far as the sanitizing of the equipment and make sure they're protected. Um, but yeah, coming back and saying, you know, I was stopped in a parking lot. The truck stop was too full. The rest areas were closed, and I got a knock on my door, and you know, being very cautious, peeked out the side, and
yeah.
here was a man and woman standing there, and they had went and got a takeout meal from one of the local restaurants. Thought he might be hungry. Yeah, it was. There was a number of stories, and yeah, it seemed to kind of just you're thinking all the kind of bad stuff. You know, there's a lot of good things out there, and it's very heartwarming.
And that's what, yeah, we need to report more and need to talk about more. And so thank you for doing that. Awesome program. Thanks. Ivan Armstrong Trucking, how many trucks in your fleet? What do you guys do?
Uh, we're sitting roughly at about 50 trucks.
Okay. And what do you haul? Where do you go?
Majority auto parts throughout Ontario, mostly cross border into the U.S. A lot of I-75 corridor stuff.
Okay.
2 and 3 day trips, so it's nothing. No coast to coast.
Nice. You're home.
Yeah, yeah, exactly.
That's amazing. Well, thank you. So that's Ivan Armstrong Trucking. Let's talk about Jeff. You've got a trucking background.
A
So
little
this
bit,
was old
yeah,
hat to you. It's like hopping on a bike.
yeah,
What
exactly. Or
what got
not
you?
fault, not faulty.
What got you into the trail? When did you start trucking? What got you into it?
Uh,
Jeff's story.
Large trucks. I think I was like any other kid growing up. You know, the large equipment was always impressive. Of course, the blockbuster Smoking the Bandit didn't hurt either. Uh,
Yes.
yeah, but yeah,
Influenced
so
by movies.
yeah, yeah. It was later on in my career when I did get into trucking. Um, it was 96. I went to truck driving school, got my license with the intention of no way am I going to make this a career.
Yeah.
Just something to kind of fill in the blanks. And yeah, a couple of years in, thinking, boy, I really don't mind this at all. I majority of my trucking was all cross border.
Okay.
I've I've ended up in every state but three. Unfortunately, Florida, Oregon, and Washington never did meet Jeff. But
What do you mean an Ontario driver doesn't make it to Florida? I mean, that's
yeah,
almost like that should be a Canadian province.
yeah, I think I made it to a delivery about 4 miles north of the Florida line on 75, and I thought I was just that close, but it just didn't quite happen. So no,
Hilarious.
yeah, no, it worked out great. Next thing I knew, I was 17 years into it. Um, Not that I was getting tired of it, but I had family at home, young boys that were growing up,
Yeah.
mothers very independent. which I think behind every successful male truck driver is that there's a good woman at home looking after things for you, so you're not having to worry about those things.
You're a wise man.
Yeah, well, I ended up having an injury. I broke my femur,
Oh
and
no.
so I was home on the couch for a little while. And my wife, of course, home on my couch, feeling sorry for myself. My wife came in and said, "You know what? This is the perfect opportunity. You've been talking about this for a long time, so get on there, find out what sort of courses you need." And my background before driving, I had quite a bit of exposure to health and safety, which I always enjoyed.
Yeah.
And she said, "Here's a perfect opportunity, maybe to try to combine the two of them together." So I took some courses through the University of New Brunswick, 2-year course. I was so
Yeah.
motivated, 45 years old, going back to school.
Yes.
Finished a 2-year program in a little over 4 months. I had
Uh,
a couple, my two youngest,
yeah.
we were having contests while they were in school, right?
Yeah.
Just to see how well Dad was going to do. So yeah, it worked out very well. And
But it sounds like you found that really fun. Like to me, I'm jealous
yeah,
because I've always said to people, when I went to university, it was like there would be these 50-year-olds taking their courses. And I thought, and then they go for lunch afterwards and they had the money to pay for the courses. And it was just like, and now being 50 some years old, I look back and go, it would be cool because I have experience to apply the learning to.
mhm,
Whereas when you're in university, if you don't have the experience, it's hard to imagine what they're talking about. Or if you're in a trade
right.
school, that's more direct application. So maybe that's somewhat better. But I think that's a cool story. So that must have been awesome to be back
Oh,
in
it
classroom.
it it was. And the very first company that took a chance on me out of truck driving school, of course, then they wanted 1,000,000 miles verifiable, accident free, was Ivan Armstrong.
Yeah,
I was one of two drivers. We started into the automotive, crossing borders, so it was as much of a learning experience for myself as it was him at the time.
yeah,
Yeah, years later, as most, the grass looked a little greener. I had left. I didn't burn any bridges. Every once in a while, I'd stop back, have a coffee, and say, "Hey, I'm available to come back." And I would lower my offer to here, and he'd bring his to here. And disagree, and plan on meeting at a coffee in the future. So yeah, after I had my program, we had met up, and it just happened that they were looking to expand that side
yeah,
of the business to a little more into the kind of the preventative side of safety and compliance,
yeah.
and they're very forward thinking. They're
I love it.
yeah, and something that cultures, like I said, the community support, it has to come from the top down.
Yeah,
You can have the best intentions walking in, but if you're constantly running into those roadblocks, so
yeah,
having that support from the top down, having that support, like you know again, being a member of the Fleet Safety Council, that was one of the first conversations we had. And they said, "Okay, when you come into the office here, we want you to go to these meetings." And I'm thinking, okay, you're going to actually pay me to go away from the office, have lunch, and socialize. Of course, we call it networking, and
yeah,
yeah, and I'm thinking, wow, yeah, that really seems great. So yeah, again, I can't say enough for the Fleet Safety Council,
yeah,
and the meeting's a chance to network. And of course, IHSA looks after the administration for the Fleet Safety Council. I had a chance
yeah.
to sit on a couple different executive positions there. October 1st, our annual um, Fleet Safety Council conference is coming up. Uh, Virtual again for the second year. Did a fantastic job last year. This year is going to even be better.
Awesome.
But yeah, I consider that I won the lottery, to tell you the truth, David.
You've won a few.
Yeah. It just it's funny how things work out. Of course, having a having a very determined and independent wife at home, what's going to happen now? I broke my leg and I'm in the house. How long is this going to last? And you know, thankfully, she told me if all it took was a broken leg to get me off the road, she would have busted it years ago. So yeah, having the support, I'm definitely a pretty lucky fellow.
That's awesome. It's great hearing your story. And one thing that will give hope and encourage people is a lot of people, life happens, and they get taken away from a certain career that they thought they would do for the rest of their life, whether it's because of health or otherwise. But your story says that when you just commit to learning new skills, the time you spent is never wasted. It's just a foundation for doing something better, bigger, and it brings you closer to winning the lottery of just doing what you love and loving what you do.
Exactly.
So, Mr. Jeff, thank you for sharing your story. Keep on doing what you're doing. Your area of Fergus and so on. What a beautiful area. I mean, being there for the truck show and over the years, and just driving around to the various little cafes by the rivers and the winding roads, and I mean, it's just incredibly beautiful. So you're a lucky man, my friend. You take care of yourself and have yourself a great day.
You as well, David. Thank you for having me on. Take care.
Hey, it's Dave James here with Bar J Heavy Mechanical with another segment of Shop Talk. Today we're going to look under the hood and do a quick pre-trip inspection of our fluids, belts, electrical, and that kind of thing, hose clamps. Make sure you're up and ready to go and you can get to your destination on time. So for starters, we're going to start with the easy stuff. Wash your fluid is very important. You got to keep your windshield clean. You got to be able to see. You got to keep the sun out of your eyes and the streaks and that really bother you guys when you're on the roads. Wash your fluids cheap. Keep it topped up all the time if you can. While we're on this side, we're just going to take a quick look at the steering shaft, steering components, make sure everything's tight and secure. Looking for electrical, you can see something's hanging off here on this truck. That should be addressed. I mean, this guy didn't say there's an engine light on or anything yet, but this is just something easy you can take back, maybe throw a zip tie on it so the steering shaft doesn't rip it off. Then it costs you a $100 connector down the road. So anyway, moving on. You want to look at the hose clamps. You want to look at the fan and the belt. Make sure the belt's nice and secure. Look for cracks in the ribbing, that kind of thing. Dents, holes, rocks get up in there. They can put dents and can prematurely wreck your belt. You can see you got a little bit of a leak going on right here. It's like it's power steering hoses and that kind of thing. Doesn't look detrimental to you, but down the road it could be. It's going to cause issues. Take it into a shop like ours and we'll get that fixed up. Pretty simple. Brackets like this, like I said, hoses, rad securement, hood securement, electrical. Just a nice visual of what's going on up here, just to make sure everything's safe and sound. Rad hoses up here. We'll step around to the other side. Here you can have a better look at your belt. Most trucks have two belts. This is your main fan belt and this is your auxiliary belt up here, running your AC and that kind of stuff. Have a good look for cracks, splits, dents in the belt, as if rocks hit it and that kind of thing. Make sure the fan is nice and secure. Again, the pipes on this side. Make sure there's no leaks or nothing that's going to have a major leak on your trip. If there is something as simple as a little drip here and there, it doesn't hurt to take a flat blade screwdriver and tighten up some hose clamps on hoses like this. Just keep it nice and simple. Electrical here on your alternator. Make sure it's not corroded or anything like that, or you can take a wire brush and corrode it or remove the corrosion. If you do take a wire brush into this, try and take this post off. This is your battery positive post. Take it off, brush it off to the side, because if you're brushing this while it's on the metal alternator, it's going to short to ground and cause a bunch of sparks. You don't want that to ever happen. Coolant up here, make sure your coolant level's proper. You can see on this side here, there's a minimum level. Want to make sure you're at that level or above. And then, yeah, just another quick peek at your pipes. Like I say, put your hands on stuff, push it, feel around, have a look for exhaust leaks over here on this side. Have a look at your filters. A quick peek underneath the engine for drips and drops and puddles anywhere, and try and address that before you get out on the road. That should get you to where you need to be. Hope that helps.
Thanks to Jeff Lambier. Great story, great initiative. Thanks to Glenn Caldwell, NL Insurance. Thanks to the PMTC, Private Motor Transport Council, and all the trucking companies that were involved. Thanks to Ivan Armstrong Trucking for getting involved in that. As we wrap up the show, just want to remind you, we're in this for the long haul, pardon the pun. We've been doing the calendar since 2008. We just started the radio show, the podcast, but I think we're going to be doing it for a long time. We're in it for good, making positive change, telling people stories, sharing the excellence of the people that are in the industry. And one of the ways we're going to do good this week, I'm kind of excited, is we're going to be working with Slammin' Sammy again to make this month's call for the WOW Nationals Virtual Big Rig Race to determine a Canadian Virtual Big Rig Racing champion. And really cool, one of the entrants this month is Swervin' Mervin. Now, if you know NABRR racing from the past, North American Big Rig Racing, you'll recognize that name. Mervyn Paderny, Swervin' Mervin. He's the owner and founder of Paderny Trucking, which is a well-known trucking company in Alberta and throughout the Western Canada. But he's also well-known on the racetrack for his daring moves and for his number of victories on the track. And he is a huge fan of Slammin' Sammy. They've been friends for a long time. And he's thrown his hat into this month's race. And so people that are entering, like Wes Cole and Todd Whiteass and Ty Jam and a number of the truckers that have entered the race, they're in it against a legend. Now, if you haven't heard about the WOW Nationals and Virtual Big Rig Racing, you don't need to bring your truck. There isn't actually a raceway. We call it Lesko International Speedway in honor of Lesko Distributors, one of our sponsors, and they've been involved in racing, so it makes sense to name this fictitious stadium after them. But here's what it is. The call's on the WOW show, and it's a made-up call. The call's in Slammin' Sammy's head. We're doing good because every truck that registers makes a minimum $10 donation to Dog Guides, Lions Foundation of Canada, in support of dog guides for people. Slammin' Sammy is legally blind. And 3 years ago, Irv, his guide dog, came into his life and radically changed it. And as Slammin' is donating his time to make these calls every month, we're supporting that charity. And it's just doing good for a number of people. And so we're going to be up there. He's going to be making that call. It's in his head. We don't know who's going to win. He makes it up as it goes along. And it's just a blast. It came out of my experience during the Calgary Stampede. If you've ever been to the Stampede, there is a hotel called the Louis Hotel in downtown Calgary. And I remember with my buddies at work at that time, we would go for the occasional lunch, and there were no horses. There was no racetrack. But there was a man or a lady behind the bar, and they would do a race call, and you could throw in quarters on the table and choose the horse that you wanted against your buddies, and the winner won the pot. But it was just a blast. And we need good times in these times of COVID. And so why not have fun? Do it for a good cause. That's what the WOW Nationals are all about. Tune in 2 weeks from now on the WOW Show for the June WOW Nationals to crown a new Canadian champion. Last month's champion, Travis Matheson out of Atwood, Ontario. This month, who will it be? Will the legend Swervin' Mervin come through? Will Wes Cole in his automatic pull up from the rear and take it, or everyone else in front of him crash and win the race? You just don't know, and that's the cool part about it. And so if you hear me laughing, or you hear a laughter from where you don't know where it's coming from, no matter where you are in the country, it's probably me having a good time with Sam and Slammy, calling this race and just having fun with the people that entered. Thank you to the drivers that entered for entering their trucks. It is a great cause that we're helping. So as we wrap up this week, I just want to remind you that you're awesome. Thank you for what you do. Thank you for who you are. And yeah, may the sun shine in your hood and on your soul this week. God bless you. Have an awesome week. David out.